the current minority leader, Leader Boehner, and have asked him for the assurances that I would be able to serve on those two committees if elected to serve you in Congress. Certainly, I don't have that in writing, but I have asked, and I will continue to communicate to the leadership in Washington that those are very, very important to the representative of the 2nd Congressional District in order to be able to fight for our military bases and our agricultural community. I just want to say that we all know that that is such a huge and integral part of our local economies, and we absolutely need a strong voice on both of those committees. So I have made that request. I have made that desire to be known, that it is so vitally important that our representatives serve on both of those committees.
Mr. Barber?
Pretty much along the same lines. I have not spoken with Mr. Boehner. He was not in office when I made my trip to D.C., but I have spoken with a lot of the congressmen here in the state of Alabama, as well as our former congressman here, Terry Everett, who also served on that defense committee. And I think it's important that we've illustrated that to them. And I think either one of us will have many people fighting on our behalf to get us on a committee we've been on for so long, deserve to be on because it's appropriate for the district we're in. And I feel that either of us would have an opportunity to be able to take that seat.
The U.S. Treasury predicts the national debt to be $19.6 trillion in 2015. Do you support the fair tax, the best method to solve the debt and tax problems associated with the debt?
Yeah, from the beginning, supporting the fair tax has been my number one option for tax reform. We don't hear a lot about tax reform right now. It's not necessarily the top item on the list. And I'll tell you the reason that is. The reason that is because we don't have people educating everyone else on how much the tax code is a linchpin to the corruption and to the problems in our country. It is the number one tool that is used throughout our country to affect change in regards to corruption, controlling industries, and doing everything they do. It is their tool in their tool belt. And then once people understand that, all of a sudden, I promise you, tax reform will come to the top of the list of what people are demanding we start to tackle. Because if you want to take on your enemy, just like in war, what do? You cut off their supply line, you cut off it so they can't continue to attack you and fight you. It's the same thing in Washington, D.C. You take away the tools they have, all of a sudden won't be able to do that. And right now, the fair tax is the best way to do it. And the fair tax, in short, moves it from an income-based tax system. You repeal the 16th Amendment, abolish the IRS, and you put in a national sales tax in place of it, which would be a replacement tax. There wouldn't be any inflated cost of goods. And it's important that people start looking into what options are out there. You have a flat tax. It's one that's it's an option. It's not the best option, but it's one that's out there, and it would definitely help the situation. But the fair tax would help the economy. It would end corruption in our society, and also it would tremendously increase revenues because you would broaden the tax base so everyone's paying their fair share instead of carrying the weight on the select few that make the most in our country.
I absolutely believe that we must have tax reform in this country. Our current tax code is so absolutely complex. We spent $500 billion in compliance alone on our current tax code last year. I believe that we need a fairer and simpler tax code. And I have said time and time again that I look forward to working with people like John Linder and others currently in Congress who are looking for solutions in order to reform our tax code. Anytime you penalize something, you get less of it. And that's exactly what our current code does. So I absolutely am for reform of our current tax code that makes it fairer and simpler.
What do you plan to do to help veterans and the military?
I'd like to take a minute. I'm sorry, I'm leaning in my notebook because I want to direct you. I'm really excited about this, and I ran out of time in my earlier speech, but I'm excited to announce, and you can go to my website, martharoby.com, where we have put together a Veterans Advisory Committee. And there are some really wonderful people who have dedicated their lives to serving our country that have agreed to serve on this committee to help inform me and others about issues that are so very important to our veterans. And let me just say this. We have made promises that we have not kept to our veterans. And it is so very important that we send people to represent us in Congress that are willing to keep the promises that have been made. There is no greater sacrifice than what our veterans have done. We wouldn't be standing up here right now running for public office if it weren't for the sacrifices of those who have served in our military and gone before us and fought for the very freedoms that we enjoy right now. So when I tell you that I am very committed to the issues related to our veterans, I am very committed to the issues related to our veterans, and I've surrounded myself by people who understand those issues and can articulate them to me and educate me in a way that will help me fight for you in the U.S. Congress.
Naturally, being a veteran myself, that's another driving force on why I got in this race. And she's right, we have a lot of problems throughout it, and especially in this district. When you ask the question about which base, I'll tell you which base has the most veterans and retirees around it. There's no doubt that's the Wiregrass. The Wiregrass has close to 200,000 active retirees from the military in this area. So it's a big voter base and a big group of people that you want to make sure you're listening to. 2 months ago, I put out what I call the VA Action Initiative, because what I heard from people as I was traveling throughout the district was how much Bobby Bright was delivering lip service, but not delivering any results. Right? We have claims that are being denied. We've got people that are dying before they're able to get their benefits from Agent Orange exposure. It just seems like we just keep kind of kicking the can down the road so we don't have to pay out benefits and waiting for these good folks to die off instead of getting the money they deserve and the benefits they deserve. You've got spouses that are being left behind. You've got the VA hospital itself that has some things that need to be addressed. So the VA Action Initiative that I put together works like this. It's twofold. First and foremost, it's very similar, I think, to what Martha's doing, but very similar to it, I think, where you have a committee of volunteers that are veterans, have experience with the VA, have experience in this area, and want to get together on a monthly basis to discuss what challenges are there, what things need to be addressed. Beyond that, I plan on having very specific paid staff, minimum of 2, that are, again, have deep experience in working with the VA in this area, and that way I have a group of collective feedback as well as an action team to go and actually accomplish something that I can put my congressional weight behind to start making things happen. So whether that's a delayed case that keeps getting kicked out, records that are disappearing, all this stuff has a step-up process, if you will, that I'm in control of and I can get the right information to act upon. And as a veteran, I'll tell you, in the family of veterans in my family, my dad retired from the Marine Corps, my brother served 3 tours in Iraq. I assure you, there is nobody who will fight harder than I will for our veterans in this area. Thank you.
We'll move on now. Your opponent has